Really looking forward to this next discussion. My guest for this fireside chat, well, she's a leader at the forefront of global network transformation. As president and CEO of Lumen Technologies, Kate Johnson is guiding one of the world's most critical digital infrastructure companies through a period of extraordinary change, where AI is not just an application layer, but a force reshaping the very foundations of the internet. Now, since joining the company 3 years ago, Kate has had to make uncomfortable, often difficult decisions, but she is on a path of turning Lumen from a legacy telecom into the trusted network for the AI economy. And her strategy is now hitting an inflection point. Let's find out more. Please welcome to the stage Lumen CEO Kate Johnson. Welcome, Kate. Hey, good. Come take a seat. Welcome to MWC, Kate. Welcome to Barcelona. Is this a familiar event for you?
I've been here before, but this is the first time with Lumen.
Fantastic. Well, you're very welcome. Great to have you with us.
Thank you.
So let's get into it. I mean, we can see here, the focus of our chat today. You're really saying that AI demands a new internet architecture. That's a pretty bold statement. I mean, you're not messing around there, Kate. But let's look at this, from the perspective of a CIO.
Yeah.
Kate, they're under enormous pressure. They've got to innovate with AI, but also they've got to improve cloud economics, which we've gotten used to in the past few years. What's changed in their mandate?
I think it just continues to intensify with the advent of AI. So CIOs are on the hook to innovate right at the cost point that you're talking about. They have to drive insight at the speed of thought. And because we're all terribly impatient, we all want everything immediately. And as AI continues to up the game in terms of how quickly we can get and synthesize information, the onus falls on the CIO to do that in a cost-effective, high-performant way for companies who are under enormous pressure to transform. So all eyes are on that problem, and it's a complex one because the architectures are changing, data workloads are exploding, and users like you and me are getting pretty impatient.
But of course, AI promises transformation, but this is coming at massive cost increases as well, isn't it? I mean, are CIOs prepared for the economics of scale of AI, Kate?
So I think that's an interesting debate that we can have. I think more and more are carving out parts of their budget for AI. They're very focused on productivity.
Okay.
And I think they really need to be focused on their customers and how they can delight those customers, because that's where the growth is going to be. We're hearing in the paper every day, AI productivity here, thousands of jobs lost over there, et cetera. Where is the story about transforming the experience for the customer with new workflows, with new business outcomes, so that you can really build a growth story? That's the pivot that we need to make.
Yeah, we've spent years, as I said just now, like moving everything to the cloud. Are we kind of at the limit of that strategy?
I think hybrid architecture is here to stay. So there was a day where we said, okay, everything in the cloud. Oh, do you remember before that? Where we said, cloud? I'm not putting my data in the cloud. And then it was, okay, this thing works.
Yeah.
And, the hyperscalers,
we got over the nervousness, didn't we? Yeah.
They can protect our data better than we can because they spend more on security than we do. And they can drive innovation for all the development platforms, et cetera, faster than we can. So onward into the cloud. And then we realized that we didn't want to put everything in one place, so we did multiple clouds. And now we don't necessarily want to turn it all over to the clouds because their business models don't necessarily support what AI demands. And AI demands, that you have enough compute. Compute depends on space cooling, power, and connectivity. So there's really this data center explosion. Everybody's building them. And the CIOs are spreading workloads to the most cost-efficient place on the curve. And that requires something fundamentally different from networking than we've had in the past.
Well, is the future then about more cloud, or is it about getting kind of smarter in terms of where you put it? Edge, cloud, private infrastructure?
That's right. It's all about where you're going to put it, and it's edge, it's data center, and it's multiple clouds.
Okay. So let's nice context setting. Let's now look at what CIOs need from networks. I mean, I've heard you, and when we were chatting about topics for this conversation, I've heard you say that today's network, it's just not up to meeting tomorrow's needs. So are we kind of underestimating the bandwidth and fiber that AI is going to require?
I think we are. So 60% of the traffic on the internet today at large is coming from AI agents. Okay. And you and I both know that most companies haven't really hit the curve in terms of steady state for their AI agent, their business workflows, right? They're just getting started. Yeah. So with 60% now, you can just imagine the proliferation that's going to happen. And what enterprises, there's two pieces to this. There's the hyperscaler side where they're building the supply side of the AI economy. And massive data center build out, massive connectivity spend, massive infrastructure spend to provide services to enterprises. Enterprises have the CIO budget, CTO budget, and they're like, okay, how much are we going to spend on AI? And they're recognizing their networks, they're not big enough, fast enough, secure enough, or smart enough. They're not intelligent enough. And they're recognizing that they need something fundamentally different. And it's just a couple of things. We all know the bandwidth and latency thing. It's got to be big, it's got to be fast. Right? But there are these other sort of things to consider. Are all the data centers in a region or across the globe where I am, are they connected with fiber? Do I have on-ramps into the cloud that are fast and efficient and don't charge me, right, just to connect? And is my network programmable? The old world is enterprise prem to the cloud. One connection, static, doesn't move, stays there forever. The new world is, I got to connect all my prems together, all my edges together, all my cloud, wherever I have stuff in it, and every combination they're in. So it's got to be programmable so it can be dynamic, so it can change as your business requirements change.
Kate, I saw a great quote from you recently. You said that AI demands insight at the speed of thought. Mm-hmm. But what does that mean in kind of practical terms? How do we even start to generate that?
So I think it's, like I said, it's all about fastest time to first token. Yeah. Okay? It's about speed to get insight when you're, clicking on your keyboard or you're on your phone or you're talking into a device. And I don't know about you, but remember the old days where there was lots of beeping and humming when a modem was firing up to, make a connection. And then when the internet came and when search came, we all were like, oh, thank God, because that old stuff was too slow. We thought the old stuff was great, by the way, when it came out.
We always think it's great, and then we need,
And then we need more. Yeah. And I think right now we're at this place where instant gratification is a thing. And if we don't get it from AI, we're, just stymied. Like, how is it so hard that you're giving me, my board memo, looking across all of my ERP, and CRM systems and bringing all the insights to the board, and it's taking you more than 10 seconds? That's outrageous. And it's the expectation of the customer experience. Customers expect instantaneous gratification from their technology experiences, and AI is making it harder and more possible.
So if we were designing the internet today specifically for AI, what would we do differently?
So I think the physical network, you start with Lumen's network, or that kind of coverage. So we cover, a large swath of North America. We're within 5 milliseconds from 95% of the businesses in North America. You need that in, around the globe at every single geography. But I think if we were to build it today, we would cloudify it. Okay. Compute and storage, that's been cloudified since 2006 when AWS launched their business, right? And what does cloudify mean? It means you can fire up, any compute node and storage node. It's instantaneous. You can have it as big or small, whatever flavor you want, and it's all with a couple of clicks. Network just hasn't been like that. It's been analog all that time, and we've got to promote networking to be at the same level as cloud, as compute and storage in the world of cloud. And if we were to rebuild it today, that's what we would do. The good news is we don't have to. We have the physical network. We can overpull with modern fiber solutions, which we're doing. and we can build that digital platform with a single control plane on top that makes the network act exactly like compute and storage do in the cloud world.
Yeah, I'd love to spend a few minutes focusing a little bit more on how Lumen is supporting this kind of new world. I mean, I said in my introduction, you've made some difficult decisions over the last 2 or 3 years. Expand on, the strategy behind those decisions and what you're doing going forward.
Yeah. So the assignment that the board gave me, which was different than the assignment of the prior management team, the board said, pivot this company to growth.
Okay.
And the very first hard decision that started, 2 days before I got there, because it was a part of our agreement, was to cut the dividend.
Okay.
So instead of harvesting cash on declining revenues to pay a dividend, they wanted to harvest that cash to build that digital platform to transform customer experiences and bring the company back to life. We were laden with debt, $21 billion of debt, all declining revenue, no innovation, no growth platform. So we were in a bit of a pickle. And I joined the company in late 22, hired a new management team, injected new talent at every level of the company, and frankly, took the great talent that was there and empowered them to tell us what was happening at the company, repositioned the company to be the trusted network for AI, saying, hey, we've got these assets that are deeply relevant to hyperscalers. And we transformed our capital structure. We took the company from 21 billion of debt down to 12 billion of debt by saying we were going to focus on the enterprise business and sell off our fiber to the home. And then we did $13 billion worth of deals with the hyperscalers to connect their data centers. And we stand here today having turned around the business, and now we're driving transformation of the company and the industry.
I imagine that changes on that scale require a huge cultural shift internally. I mean, how do you even begin to approach that, Kate?
Well, I had a friend named Brene Brown. She's a sociologist who does a lot of leadership research and development, and I called her up and I said, I got a live one for you. We'd worked together at Microsoft, and she has this methodology called Dare to Lead. We rolled out Dare to Lead training to 25,000 employees. Okay, so everybody, it was mandatory, everybody had to take it, including our techs. We worked with the unions to try and figure out how to get them to participate in the program. And it taught them skills that can be learned of how to build courage, how to be more vulnerable, how to show up and actually be more curious and unpack really hard problems. Instead of operating from fear and trying to protect old revenue, how do we show up with courage and really sort of overcome, those insecurities to make bets on our future, knowing that we could fail, because that's really hard. Nobody wants to fail. That's gross, right?
But sometimes the only way to get to that is you have to take those risks, right?
You have to, and taking risks is completely antithetical to a fearful culture. Right? If you're a fear-based culture, or if you're playing not to lose and protecting old revenues, legacy revenues, and harvesting cash to pay a dividend, that's a play not to lose strategy. A play to win strategy, which was what we wanted the new culture to be, is all about making bets. It's about being just as happy to say yes to something as no. We were bad at saying no. And saying no is a great business decision often, and so building the muscle to do both of those things. And then probably the most important muscle we built is the learning muscle. Being curious, excavating what's the truth about what hasn't been said, seeing where the real problems are, and then trying new things. And when you try new things and you fail, face plant in front of the team. We help each other up, and we say, all right, that didn't work. What are we going to do differently? What did we learn? Okay, let's go. And we actually kind of celebrate people who have the courage to do that, which is very different than most boardrooms.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of that cultural shift, you mentioned the hyperscalers. I think you put a huge number on that. What was millions? What was the deals with?
13 billion with the hyperscalers so far.
Okay, so very much a partnership agreement rather than, they're not competitors. And was that part of the kind of cultural shift as well?
Yeah, there's always, ever since I'm new to telecom. I came from Microsoft most recently, before then, and Oracle before that, and et cetera, and GE. So I was sort of curious because I never remember Microsoft wanting to build their own network.
Okay.
And when I came here, everybody was like, oh, but the hyperscalers want to compete. And I see it differently. I see the hyperscalers want to drive as much growth in their businesses as possible. And performance is key. And if a technology partner can help accelerate consumption of cloud, for example, that's a partnership, not a competitive situation. And so really orienting the network around how it helps the cloud companies grow has been an essential sort of, that's, value proposition, if you will, of the partnership. I think also, we don't want to start a cloud business. We're really happy with building a digital network services company that's available anywhere, it's ubiquitous, and covers all the connection, combinations. So universal coverage of that, and that's intelligent. And sticking to that network has been a critical part of how we're starting to really build partnerships with the hyperscalers. They want to stay as close to the cloud as possible in that orchestration layer, all driving faster consumption of their cloud. And when they came and did $13 billion of deals with us across multiple companies, obviously, we were basically selling velocity. We were selling time to value for them, because if they were to build what we already had, it would take them decades.
So if I ask you to kind of sum that up, and what does an AI-ready network mean to Lumen?
Yeah, massive bandwidth, ability to handle massive amounts of data. It's just going to keep accelerating. Number two, it needs to be malleable, because we don't know where or when this network's going to be called for duty. So it's got to be available ubiquitously, but it has to be malleable, dynamic, so that it can change to support whatever that architecture looks like. And it's got to be programmable. You have to be able to interact with this massive physical thing that nobody can see and make it behave in the way that you want to drive the right outcomes. And that's not just bandwidth and latency, it's also performance and security. And so bringing more and more services into that networking layer to perform, in service to driving business outcomes at the application layer, is a great role for the network, and it's a great set of capabilities that we're building into Lumen's network.
Okay, we've got a couple of minutes left, and we're gonna round up with a kind of quick fire close if we can. One thing CIOs must rethink about AI infrastructure.
The flexibility. You know what? I would promote it from the basement.
Yeah.
Most network is purchased from a procurement team that focuses on purchasing infrastructure, and they have two metrics: how much, does it cost, and how much bandwidth am I buying? This is a CIO level decision, so promote network to the table and consider it a critical part of your infrastructure.
Good stuff. We started off on this, but the biggest misconception about cloud in the AI era, the biggest misconception?
Not our competitors, not our best friends, really tough customers who demand more from us and make us better. And I think if you take the best of our strategies and combine them, we have something special for customers.
One word for the future of internet architecture. You've got to say this. One word for the future of internet architecture.
Paramount.
Okay. Hugely important. Basically, critical.
Correct.
Critical.
Well, you said one. Yeah. I couldn't say hugely. I said paramount.
Very
right?
paramount. Is that?
That's exactly right.
Okay. And look, if we get this architecture right, and obviously there's a big road ahead of us. I mean, what's going to be possible in the future, Kate? Well, let's say we're sat here at MWC 2030. We could be talking about stuff that we haven't even imagined now. But what do you think could be possible?
You know what? That is the question, and it really kind of concerns me. This maniacal focus on productivity. It's not the right focus, and everybody's like, okay, I got to use AI to replace the tasks and do drive automation, et cetera. Yes, totally. We all want to be more efficient. We all want to drive faster outcomes. You have to use AI to reimagine your workflows. You have to use AI to reimagine the customer experience. And that takes a different muscle then the current business processes that we have set up today, you can't just make those business processes better. You have to say, this is the question that I ponder every day. What do my customers, these enterprises, want and need from a digital network services company? And how can AI help me deliver that? And that's going to drive us through this period of adaptation, I think, a lot faster than if we just focus on productivity. So I'd love to help customers make that shift with me.
Okay, your message today very clear about rethinking the architecture of the internet. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.